Hello and welcome to Get Yourself Optimized. I'm your host, Stephan Spencer, and today it's my distinct pleasure to have Lazo Freeman with us. Lazo was on this podcast previously, many years ago, back in 2016, and now he's back, this time to not talk about bodybuilding and body transformation, but spiritual transformation. Lazo was previously a body transformation coach and a champion bodybuilder, founder of the Body Transformation Academy, which won Best Innovation in Mindset and Wellbeing from the UK government in 2017. He also founded Influential Gentlemen, a personal development community and program for men. Then Lazo had a miraculous mystical healing, which left him with many questions and put him on the pursuit of understanding the nature of reality, studying with master yogis, indigenous elders, Dr. Joe Dispenza, and many more masters. Making the mystical practical, he has done healing work now for thousands of people, running large healing events in London with a team of students on the path of understanding the true self and how to be of service to humanity. Lazo, it's so great to have you on the show.
Thank you, Stephan. It's so good to see you. And I'm so happy to be on Get Yourself Optimized and having a different type of conversation from workouts to work-ins.
Yes, that was a while ago that you were on this podcast talking about how to build your body, and now we're going to talk about spiritual epiphanies and
Mhm.
transformations. I'm excited for that because I've seen your evolution over these last few years, and it is miraculous. It's beautiful. I love for us to maybe start our conversation by talking about what happened. What was that mystical, magical event that turned you onto a different path?
Um, yeah, great. I mean, it's a great place to start. To this day, I'm still pinching myself. Did it really happen? How did it happen? And there are still questions to be answered, but I feel um, that situation has really propelled me on a new direction that I wasn't looking for on some level. So when I was working as a body transformation coach and had my academy, had a bunch of students, and I was really into entrepreneurship and hustling and working hard. Now I just want to let know the audience that I was never into anything esoteric. Mysticism was just so far away from my own perception. People who were into any of that, I thought they were wacky. I thought they were hippies. I had nothing to do with it. So, I was very in the materialistic world, let's just say, in terms of like logic and science and reason. My father is an engineer. So, my religion back then was science, anything to be explained, rationally. But something happened to me that wasn't rational. Like it just wasn't rational. And I basically tore my ACL. I tore my meniscus, my knee, and I was supposed to get an operation, like you're supposed to get an operation. And for somebody who loved fitness and who loved training, I couldn't walk, bro. I just couldn't walk. And maybe after a month or so, I would just twist slightly and my knee will pop out. I'm on the floor 2 weeks back in bed. Like it was a very depressing time in my life, like super depressing. Anyways, I just remember Dr. Joe. We were friends back in the day. He didn't really have any method yet, he just had concepts. And so I decided to read his new book, You Are the Placebo. And here it is, this guy heals himself. And another person heals himself. And another person heals himself. I'm like, wait, if this is true, let me give it a go. So I started doing that practice that he prescribes. And just to a caveat, I was very stressed out in business. Running a business was really stressful. So I had all this stress in my system, like continuously. So the meditation will remove this stress. Anyway, the practice that Dr. Joe kind of really goes into is the unknown. Like things can happen in the unknown. As soon as we think it's going to happen the way we want it, it's not it. It's something unexpected. So I did his practice for like 2 months, 3 months, non-stop. Worst case scenario, I can always do surgery. That's how I saw it. The worst case, go back. I happened to be in a teepee, sitting with some shamans, working in a ceremony, and lo and behold, these beings came down and did surgery on my knee. And I've never had that experience in my entire life. I never knew there were such things out there. And it was a deep experience. I fell back. It felt timeless, like completely like time was gone. It was another dimension. And these beings were just doing work on my knee. And when it finished the prayer, and I was just like, because before it was like, when I was walking, like I didn't have a knee. So my left leg was always compensated. But after that moment, instantaneously, when I got back up, I stood up, was like, I have a knee. It's back. I was like, no, that can't be it. Right. And it was a very deep healing. It was so deep. And it really was a deep healing regarding my father, my own father. That was the actual energy that got trapped in my knee. Right. There's that humbleness, put your knee down to the father. And so when I awoke from the whole experience, Stephan, I was like, I don't know what's going on, bro. Like, what is that? You know, when you're a kid and you grow up and you're like, you can't wait to be an adult and to know what's going on. And you think everybody knows what's going on. Well, I felt like that again. I'm like, nobody knows what's going on. Like, what is really happening here? So that was kind of my, let's say, impetus to really go forward to discovering more about the nature of reality, who we are, what are we capable of, and learning from indigenous elders from all over the world, certain yogic practices, and just people like strangers. They're just there. So that was the journey. But yeah, to this day, I'm like thankful for that experience, and I've seen many more similar kind of experiences happen throughout my journey since then.
That is amazing. And tell me, what was the experience like of seeing or feeling or sensing, however you were able to perceive these beings working on your knee? Because it sounds like you were able to perceive them since you knew there was more than one. And
Yeah.
yeah, that just I'm very curious to hear what that was like.
The on some level it was very unfamiliar, but on another level it felt normal. From the Lazo Freeman personality up to that day, it felt like crazy. But from another part of myself, it felt like this is how it's always been. That they were always there, and they are always there, and they have been around for a long time because it's so ancient. Like it's a deep ancient. Like that, there was that kind of like dichotomy of those two feelings that were being embodied in my being in that time. And like after the shock of it, I guess I started to really start to take my practices seriously, right? Like meditations and prayer and yoga, and to have similar type experience, not really looking for it, and having a dialogue with this energy that's around. Which means to elevate one's consciousness. That's all it is. My consciousness was at a certain level to be able to experience that. It doesn't mean that they're not there. They're always there. It's just that we're not aware of it. It's a lack of awareness. So I guess to answer that question properly, Stephan, it felt familiar, yet it didn't. You know, it just felt familiar. So it's like dear friends, like old friends. Like you can't, like you really know them, but Lazo Freeman doesn't know them. But there's a part of me like, I know you guys.
Yeah. And did you get the sense that they were angels or they were some sort of other beings?
You know, I don't know. I can't say if it was it's just, you know, very intelligent, super wise, and super loving. That's so there could be angels, there could be some other beings. I don't have a name to say who, what, or where they came from exactly. I don't know. I really, I didn't get to that point to even ask. You know, I just felt the love, and it's like, wow, you guys are just awesome.
Very cool. Very, very cool. So, do you have conversations with beings that are non-physical, or do you just
Yeah,
get a sense
you know,
of things that are happening over there?
at times, if you know, there's certain sacred songs that invoke certain qualities of these types of beings that help to open up. And it's like, my teachers with spirituality, it's really the respect you have to go in when speaking to these energies. So if I'm not there in my respect and my sacredness, I don't ask, or I don't speak. But if I'm really there deeply and I ask permission, then I will have a conversation, or I'll get some answers, or it'll direct me or show me a way to help serve myself and others. Yeah.
So what happened to your business and to your bodybuilding and all the stuff that you had been focused on? Did it kind of fall apart? Did it grow exponentially? How did this affect the kind of 3D world that you were in?
I just remember I had the experience, and I had a huge event in London School of Economics, just around the corner from here, where we had like 100 people or so. And I remember being on stage. It was a 2-day workshop, and knowing this ain't it. But I gave them everything I had. I made sure they had the greatest experience. But I knew in that moment, I'm done with this. Like, I need to go discover more of who I am and what it is to be a human being. I know I've been carrying so many masks and so many layers. And so for me to continue on a business road, which is nothing wrong, I would feel unauthentic to not be able to discover this in this lifetime. So yeah, I basically went to church. I go to church, mosques, synagogues, you name it. I just go to wherever there's a temple's a temple, or into nature. And the conversation was simply follow your heart. What's your heart telling you? So my heart was telling me go into the unknown and discover something new, which was hard to do because now you have to let go of all the attachments of this identity. I'm Lazo Freeman, I have this business, I own this. And, these are all just possessions that we identify ourselves on. So it was tough, but I decided to let it go.
Yeah. And what happened with your whole bodybuilding routine? Did you set that aside, or are you still hitting the gym all the time? And what's that like?
No, I mean, I feel like I've taken it to an optimum of a level, bodybuilding, on stage at a certain level. And it's so much work, Stephan. It's just like unnecessary amount of work. It's not a life. Not that I don't still train, I still do physical activities, but I took the path of yoga more. Became a Kundalini yoga instructor, really taking that further and started discovering what yoga can do in terms of understanding the body. So yeah, much more fluid in taking care of my physical body. I became a vegetarian instantly. Like, it just dropped from somebody who loved me and loved this, just instantly just dropped away. Not looking back, which is strange. And it fell off. Like, when you have a high desire towards something, all the other things, you don't need willpower. It just falls off. So I had this, it just fell off. Like, all these things just fell off. It wasn't a big deal to me. It's like, I'm ready for this change.
Yeah. So I had something happen to me along those lines this year when I had the big spiritual awakening on January 22nd. So I've told you this story, but it was a while ago, early this year. But and I've told many of our listeners too. So apologies if you've already heard it, but I'll give the very brief version. I prayed to God on January 22nd for a job. And it might sound weird because I have a successful business. I'm an SEO consultant, expert, author, my whole 3D world kind of identity is around internet marketing.
Right.
Why would I pray for a job? Well, I had asked for a job because there was an interview I did back in November with Sheila Gillette, and she channels 12 archangels. They go by the name of Theo collectively, and she's the real deal, no doubt, 100%. And I watched a video in preparation of this interview of her talking about her near-death experience in 1969, how she was on her deathbed after childbirth, was an embolism, and she was on her way out. But she prayed to God, please let me raise my kids. Let me stay on this planet. Please just give me a job. I'll do anything. Just give me a job. And I wanted a job. I wanted, and I didn't want the near-death experience. So I wanted the job without the near-death experience. And it took me a few months, but then I was inspired one night to pray for this, and it was instant. It was like the veil was lifted, and or at least thinned, because I can't see everything,
Right.
but I can see like the Matrix. I can see how this is more like a simulation, or more like the movie The Truman Show, than it is the physical reality we thought it was.
Right.
And so much more. There's like, and I started getting messages. Not that I hadn't gotten messages before, but I was clueless to them, so I didn't notice anything. And like you said, Lazo, these were old friends, beings who had been with you for a very long time, lifetimes, eternity, right? These are ancient, right, timeless beings. We're timeless. And I just was so over the moon. I knew if I didn't get some sort of grounding from a spiritual coach, that I would sound like a Fruit Loop, and
Right.
everyone would dismiss me as gone off the deep end. So my wife, Orion, was asleep. I didn't want to wake her, and I just was so excited. I'm like, okay, I need to know who to hire as my coach. And I pick up my phone and I swipe down to do a search on my phone. Or I don't know exactly what I was doing, but I just remember swiping down, and one of the people who came to mind a minute before was my first Kabbalah teacher, like 6 years ago. Amazing guy. So, and this is not somebody that I was in constant contact with. This is somebody who I hadn't been in contact with for a while.
Yeah.
So that was my sign. Here's your sign, as what's his name? Jeff Foxworthy would say, if you're familiar with his comedy skit. So that was my sign, and I'm like, okay, got it. I need to hire him, and I've been working with him every week ever since. It's been very helpful. Helps me to know how to calibrate and when to share and when not to share, because oversharing will make you look like a Fruit Loop to people. And then there are times where you take that leap of faith, and you know that you need to go into an area that you've never gone into with a person, right? So it's some sort of, I don't know, investor or client or business professional that you've never dared veer off topic with, and you're like, okay, I need to tell you something that's going to sound a little maybe out there. And then they're like, that was the thing I needed to hear. Thank you so much. So it's a fun ride. It is a fun ride. It's definitely discombobulating, and to your point, it just shifts everything around. Stuff falls away and things. And I needed to kind of ground back into the 3D a bit more, because I got a little lost up in the clouds, and I wasn't paying enough attention to my business. So I'm back in my business, making sure that clients are happy and that leads are continuing to come through and so forth. But the business has shifted. The energy has shifted. Things are happening, not just for me. You know how Tony Robbins is famous for saying, life happens not to you, but for you. And I'm sure he heard that from somewhere else. Well, there's another level, and that's life also happens by you. So you got life happens to you at the base level. Life happens for you. That's a much higher level, and that's amazing, because life really does happen for you. We do live in a friendly universe. And then that next level is life happens by you, where you are in the pilot's seat. You're in the cockpit. This universe that you're occupying is your universe. In the multiverse, there are a very large number of parallel universes, and this one's yours. This is your Truman Show, if you're familiar with that movie.
And I love that. To you, for you, by you. It's like the Jacob ladder. It's like what Kabbalah teaches as you ascend. You know, there's these levels of ascensions of let's say, playing this game well. And to play this game well, from my experience, I can only talk from my experience. I'm not a teacher. You know, I help people I guide people. That's what I'm good at. I can just guide them to a certain destination. You know, if they want to go there, I never tell people what they should do. It's not my business. But what I realize is, especially spiritual work, you know, because the spiritual ego is very quick to develop. It's a bigger ego than any other ego. Like that's,
Oh, it sure is.
it's huge. It's really huge. And I'm so glad I got a great fiance and friends to just keep me in check. Like, thank you. Right. To all of them. And, but yeah, it's like, as we ascend, it's almost like the more we ascend to that level of by you, it's the humbleness needs to be really there. Like that deep humbleness to it, because without it, the fall is strong too by you.
Yeah. And the more you elevate and ascend, the more you attract the attention of, let's just say, negative entities that can draw energy off of you by kicking you off of the wagon, or kind of gently nudging you off of the wagon, right? And you're like, okay, I had a really great day, and then it all went to hell because I had a fight with my significant other. And then the energy that you released to the negative entities that might have been feeding off of you is huge comparison to somebody who's just let's just say unawakened. There's not much juice there. So like, okay, well, this is a person who's just a curmudgeon in life. The entities aren't getting much off of that person. It's just so.
That's right.
You need to up your game as you get elevated in your consciousness. It's so important, and the humility is key. Spiritual ego is such a thing. It is, and here's something that I learned from Eliyahu, really is profound. And I don't know if this comes from Kabbalah exactly or where, but it's important to remember where we come from. And yes, we are divine, and we have the spark of God in us. That's beautiful. And we also come from a drop of sperm. So if you're feeling a little too heady and full of yourself, just remember you came from a drop of sperm. And when you're feeling a little low, like, wow, am I even worthy for all this abundance? Remember, you are divine. So it's just to
keep ourselves in check both ways.
Yeah, it's a balancing act between those two ends of the spectrum, and whichever one feels like the thing that you need to remember at that moment. It's. Because this thing about being aware is not just being aware; it's being aware that you are aware. It's very meta. Right? You got to be aware of your awareness, conscious of your consciousness. You have to be, as Wayne Dyer said, a spiritual being having a human existence, because that's the real reality, not a human being having a spiritual existence.
Yeah, brother. I mean, having that understanding that we are here to do something and we're here to experience something, and to keep it in check is key to any spiritual growth. And whatever those, and that's what I help with people, is like various practices to keep people in their center, to tune yourself in. Like, we are instruments of consciousness. This is like a guitar string. Each energy center, or whatever you want to call them, chakras, they're strings of a guitar. Like, so when we tune them in, then we know how we sound tuned. And we get used to that. Just like, how do we sound tuned inside of ourselves? And then when we hang out with someone, or we go to a certain environment, we can literally feel being untuned. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's great. But it can start to tell you what's really happening in that environment. So the awareness becomes a little stronger. Right, of what's being pulled and what's being taught. And so that tuning in yourself, like that daily practice, whatever it is we have, is so vital to keep ourselves centered. And it's so vital to know who we really are in terms of our signature, that we always bring something unique, and then how to share that with someone else. So yeah, like the spiritual practices that we all, whether we cultivate, is I find that anything that brings balance is the first place. Anything that finds our center, great. And then it's easier to be like, okay, what am I aware of? And then, like you said, that metacognition, aware of your awareness. Like, who's doing the listening? Like, who's actually listening? Like, who's talking and who's actually listening? Like that. So we can start becoming that witness consciousness, so we can open our sphere of awareness and sphere of influence to a larger degree, to be like, okay, maybe today's not a good day to do whatever it is, or maybe it's a great day. And so to allow that to come in, but without tuning in, it's very difficult. It's a tough gig. Like, I've tried not do no practices for like a week. My life just instantly, right? Because it's got nothing to do with the outside world. It's all to do with the inner world. So yeah, it's great to like you said, we come from sperm, but at the same time we have the divine spark. It's a beautiful way of bringing us back to the center. That thought. And another thought that I love is from Michael Singer. It took 13.8 billion years for you and I to have this conversation right here, right now. So whenever I get in a situation or a problem, like, wait, I'm not controlling anything. And it's so liberating, Stephan, to know you're not actually controlling much. It's like, great, I can let go. And so the awareness can be watching to see how I can be of use and how I can be of service. So these like kind of caveats or these threads that because the mind needs something. We need to give it something to do. Otherwise, it'll go into its craziness quite easily. But those kind of threads kind of just keeps us in let's say, check, so that we can, I feel like we are in the precipice of birthing a new humanity. We are on the precipice of what it is to be a wonderful human being. What is that? Like, even though we've created the phone that has all our memories and you can speak to anybody, but this is the technology that we actually have it. We just forgot how to use it. We can tap into many different types of memories, past, present, or future. We can, have access to all sorts of different people telepathically. Like, it's there, but we just forgot how to use this beautiful technology that's in our system. So yeah, I'm looking forward to what the future brings, even though I feel like there's going to be a lot of chaos before this birthing process that's happening. And it gets me excited to know my dear friend I've known for 10 years is into Kabbalah and doing his work, and he's got a spiritual coach. I'm like, how cool is that? But 10 years ago, you and I with a spiritual coach, get out of here.
Yeah, I know. 10 years ago, I didn't even believe in God.
Me too. I believe in science. It's kind of scary.
But it happened, divine timing and divine guidance and everything was there through the whole thing. Because even though I felt disconnected, I never was disconnected.
Right.
The angels came in and saved my bacon when I fell asleep behind the wheel in my early 20s, driving 8 hours, veered off of the road going 65 miles an hour and hit a lamppost and walked away without a scratch. Now I know how that happened, but I didn't at the time. I just thought, wow, that was lucky. It wasn't luck. There was no luck involved at all. Angels came in, made this kind of geodesic dome of energy protecting me, and everything else crumpled around me. The car was totaled. I was pulling a U-Haul trailer, and the car spun out with the trailer attached back. It was just, yeah. And there are plenty of times where we'll have that kind of intervention because it's needed. Otherwise, we'd be dead, and it wasn't our time. But other than that, we got to ask for guidance. We got to ask for assistance. We'll get the intuitive hits and so forth. But if we want divine assistance, we got to ask for it. The angels are ready and waiting, but they're not going to interfere with our free will.
Right. Yeah. For those who ask, so shall receive. It's in the Bible, right? Um, and it took me a while to get to that place to ask, because whatever your at that time is that lack of like worthiness or not good enough. These beliefs that are given to us during our upbringing or passed down, yada yada yada, where it comes from. But like cleaning that out, and I find that when I'm working with clients, you know, they are on that, they're just beginning the path, is they find it very hard to ask. Like the idea of asking, it's like, well, I don't know if I deserve that. Which is interesting because what I deeply notice with just the people I've worked with for so far is that majority is everybody's relationship. Sorry, everybody's problem when it comes down to it is that relationship with the sacred inside of themselves, whatever the label, God, creator, intelligence. Like everyone's problem really comes down to that. But our first gods are mum and dad. As kids, we have that. So when we heal those relationships with mum and dad, we're actually healing the relationship with the Holy Mother, the Holy Father. You know, when we start healing relationships within our siblings or our friends or wherever it is, we are actually healing ourselves from the great, the all. So there is this kind of fractal energy that's passed on. So and I always say healing is just expanding one's consciousness. It's dense energy that's trapped in the system that hasn't been released. That's all it is. That dense energy is fuel for creation, whatever it is. It's great. So the more crap we have, the more we can actually create. It's just that unfortunately human beings are just so attached to their crap and they're suffering and they don't know how to let go of it and it's just stuck there. It creates that reality where they don't have that conversation with the creator that there is. You know, the Mayan elders, they say, we don't talk about God, we talk with God. You know, and that's a personal thing. That's always very personal. I'm not here to tell what that should be like. But to not have that, and I don't remember, I didn't have it, it's tough. Life is a lot more lonely. It's a lonely place. And it's very easy to get into that manipulation mode or that kind of like envy. All those energies are just vibrant without that relationship, you know? So yeah, I hope that everybody who's listening, you know, give themselves permission to ask.
Yeah.
And
And it's
the
and
way
it's a
to ask,
direct communication. It's a
yeah.
dialogue with God. And when we go through intermediaries, whether it's a guru or it's a medium or
Uh-huh.
it's a priest, a rabbi, whoever it is, that's our way of getting guidance. The problem with that is you are essentially going to a false god, an idol. You're idol worshiping.
Yeah.
I learned that in
Yeah.
Kabbalah that you you're communicating directly with God, and then the miracles happen, and God's sending angels or ascended masters or whoever to assist you on your journey. But it's about the direct relationship, and it's not just about talking to God, it's
Uh-huh.
about listening to God too. So it's
Yes.
and then people who aren't into this are thinking, what, I've never heard God speak, I don't have a burning bush in my backyard, what are you talking about? And it's subtle
Very
because
subtle.
that's how it
Yeah.
works. It's meant to be subtle.
Yeah.
So when
Yeah.
you are tuning in to what God is telling you, it could be in the form of an intuitive hit. It could be in the
Yeah.
form of a just a deep knowing, or in the form of some coincidence that isn't coincidental, a synchronicity. It could
Uh-huh.
be in the form of a sign that something is unusual or essentially placed there, like you keep getting feathers all the time as you're going on walks, or you keep getting uh, pennies in your path all the time. And these are ways that the creator is speaking to us through
Uh-huh.
his angels and his spiritual beings that we are all working for God. We're all working for God. And
Yeah.
it's like what our role is just depends on where we're at in our evolution. And so, I learned this one from Joe Polish. It's a funny quote. It's like, um, everyone has a purpose in our life, even if it's for some to be just a bad example. Some person in your life may just be a bad example, and that's their job in this lifetime.
Yeah.
But it's okay. I mean, we're all on our journeys at various rates and going on detours and all that. We'll all get there in the end. It's all leading to one destination. We're all going home.
Uh-huh. You said something very, very profound, which is the not being able to listen, and this is why people find it difficult to meditate. It's because it's just noisy there. There's a lot of noise for whatever reason. Our subconscious has just got dirt and garbage from God knows where, so it's very hard to listen. And the simplest and easiest way to clean that noise out is spend time with nature. Nature is the temple. Yeah, so Jesus went on the desert, Moses on a mountain, Buddha under a tree. Just spend time with nature, and it will just naturally start to clean those heavy, strong thoughts that are not allowing the subtle to come through. Such a beautiful place. So there are big decisions in life that we want to make about whatever it is, and it's not you have this profound healing experience or this profound. They're great, but sometimes when you're just in nature and it's super quiet, you just clean it out and then you ask. And like you said, there's that kind of knowing, or there's a very so knowing is very subtle, and sometimes I get that and I'm like, what? You want me to do what? Sometimes I get that expression, you want me to do, and I'm just like, okay, I'm just going to go do it. I don't know how it's going to work out. My mind doesn't know how it's going to work out. And I end up doing whatever I was given to do as an instruction, to follow the instruction. And things worked out so magically. So then we start to build that trust from what's been said to taking the action. We all have intuition. Everybody's got intuition. How about times we don't listen to it? I should listen to my intuition. It's that guidance. And so what we follow the intuition, now we're following our path. Our path is just our part of the intuition. Whatever the intuition is, follow that. Like always follow that. And we need to build trust in it. So what does that mean? When someone says, I don't trust God, it means you just don't trust yourself. Self with a big S that's inside of you. That's the part you don't trust, right? I don't trust myself. Well, you don't trust that. That's all you have. So to listen is the first step. To follow any instruction, just to follow it and see where it goes and not be attached, like surrender. They're the kind of like very simple ways to begin cultivating that relationship. Like anything, like we used to hang out 10 years ago or whatever. We had to cultivate that relationship before Stephan's like, yeah, I like hanging out with Lazo. And yeah, it's a nice guy. We need to do that with the creator too. We need to reestablish it because for whatever reasons. So yeah, that's the best advice I could give anybody is to slowly build that relationship. And it's worth it because it's your best friend. Like it's your best friend. When it comes to unites, you're like, I miss you so much. Where were you? So it's definitely worth the pursuit.
It is. And something I want to circle back to that you said earlier. You said that I know that some chaos is coming because that's how it works. And you also said that something along the lines of that you're comfortable with, or you're okay with whatever happens, that you're just kind of the observer watching things unfold because you just know that it's going to all work out. But I want to also point out one very key point we talked about, which was that you're the pilot in your cockpit of the universe. And so if you choose for chaos to ensue because you think that that's necessary for your soul's journey, it's coming. It's coming in spades. But if you believe that, no, you know what, I don't even need to wait for the subtle and not so subtle nudges from the universe, I can preempt those, and I can just go full bore into my spiritual development and helping, assisting people, and whatever else, without even the nudges. Like I can be proactive. You don't need the chaos. And in fact, the first line of the Anabacoa prayer has a meditation with each line of the 7 lines of the Anabacoa prayer, and most powerful prayer in Kabbalah, which is based on the 42-letter name of God. The first line is all about connecting to the tree of life and disconnecting from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and knowing that you are able to transform the chaos of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, the duality, right, into miracles of the tree of life. So it's not just disconnect from one tree and connect to the other, but it's about manifesting miracles and eliminating the chaos, because it's not needed. If you believe it's needed, it's coming. So I just want to throw that out there for you.
No, thank you. You can check what I said out loud, so I can actually look at that and contemplate what I meant by that in my own subconscious. I'm definitely going to have a deeper look. I guess I'm kind of I said that in the pretext of this new age, the Aquarian age that we're in, the entrance. This is really from my elder teachers. That just before COVID came out, the second door or a gate opened for the next 72 years. My elder teacher, he said, the next 72 years is going to be a big cleanup job. Like, that's where we're going. Humanity needs to clean up. And then COVID came, and I've seen how many people now are much more into meditation and practices and doing things and taking care. It's been great for that. It's been horrible in other ways, for sure. But for other things, it's been fantastic. So you're right. Like, something beautiful came out of this particular chaos for quite a few people and for future generations, right? In other ways, it's not so, because they, like you said, they chose. I just see that the next... There is a huge cleanup job that needs to happen for humanity as a collective to get to that place, right? It's because we're all broadcasting receiving machines, and if we're all broadcasting coherency and tranquility and prosperity, and then we can open ourselves up to take those actions, then we don't need something super chaotic anymore to wake us up to that. We can go through with grace and ease. And from the years of doing this kind of work, it took me a long time to realize that I can have a healing that's actually kind of gentle. I don't have to have a chaotic healing. So you're right. Like, I just can have a kind of gentle healing. And then, wow, it just went. But before, I thought it had to be this big dramatic thing. But no, you can actually release instantly. It's very kind and gentle. So you're right. It's funny. Yeah. What you're sharing is great.
And I also think that what can happen here maybe isn't so much a cleanup, but a wake up. And we need to do some repair to the planet and to Mother Earth. But I think of the awakening that's happening like popcorn that's popping. So we get some kernels popping. Maybe it's in the microwave, although that's not the healthiest way to make popcorn. And then a few more, and then a lot more, and then way more, and it suddenly is pretty much the whole bag, right? Or the whole set of kernels are all popped. And that's how I see awakening of humanity, that it's contagious. It's more contagious than COVID. Awakening is the most contagious thing, because we can't change somebody, but we change the field around us, which changes everybody. Yeah. So changing ourselves and changing the field changes everybody. And anybody that we get in touch with that we may not even share what's going on for our spiritual development, but we just have a presence about us. We have a
Yeah.
knowing, a trusting, just that subtle energy that we broadcast without even saying a word changes people, and then they awaken, and then they awaken others, and then those people are awakening others, and it just goes on and on. It's fractal and exponential.
And then we get to enjoy the popcorn and enjoy the movie.
Yes. What a
We're
movie it
playing.
is.
What a great movie.
It is.
The Rebirth of Humanity.
Did you see the Truman Show?
I did. It's a great movie, yeah.
It is a
When
great
he's
movie. I saw
living
it in
in
the
that bubble, yeah.
theaters, and I didn't know the plot. I didn't watch the trailer or anything. I had no clue. So I was as clueless as Truman was through the whole movie. I thought it was awesome. Yeah.
It's very surreal.
Yes. Well,
But at the
so
same
is
time,
this life. It's surreal,
it
right?
feels real.
And
Yeah,
another
yeah.
thing I want to mention that I think is a powerful perspective on things is that Lee Carroll channels Cryon, and Cryon shared a story, a story about, it's a parable about these fish in a fish tank. And I'm going to include that in the show notes for this episode, so you can listen to the whole story rather than me take 5 minutes to explain it now. But it is essentially like this. We are the fish in a fish tank, and we don't know what's going on outside of the fish tank. We don't realize that there are beings that are feeding us from the top of the tank, at set times of day, and turning the lights on and off, and adjusting the temperature as needed, and changing the filters and whatever.
Right.
But that's what's happening. And right now, things are in chaos, seemingly, but it is happening with divine timing and divine providence. So it feels scary and chaotic because maybe the fish tank is being moved around, kicking up sediment from the gravel on the bottom. And so it feels choking and dark. And maybe the apartment that we're in is under construction and getting a renovation, and we just feel the vibration and the what's affecting us inside the fish tank. But there's a much bigger picture that we don't see. And in Kabbalah, there's this reference to the 99% reality. We're in the 1% reality, which there's a lot too. I mean, you could spend lifetimes just learning one small aspect of this 1% reality, like I don't know, biochemistry, which is what I went to school for.
Right.
But that's only a small sliver of the real reality. And remembering that there is a 99% reality that we don't see, we don't grasp, that we don't fully comprehend or even perceive necessarily. That is humbling, and also helps us set our priorities.
Yeah. And it's exciting. There's like,
It is exciting.
I feel like I'm just beginning. I'm like in the beginner's place, So yeah.
Yeah, I
mid-30s,
say this all the
there was a
time.
part
I'm a
of me
toddler. I'm just figuring this stuff out. There are people who have been psychic their whole life, and they've been talking to angels and talking to spirit, and I'm like, yeah, this is all new for me. I had no idea I was psychic. Turns out everybody's psychic. I did not know this. I thought when I was 42, there was no God, or at least if there was, like, he's not showing himself to me. And then I had that first spiritual awakening where I got touched on the head by a monk in India, and everything went technicolor, like a LSD trip. And the guy just touched me. And then I felt so connected to everything, to God, to all that is. And then the miracles started just pouring in to my life. This is available to anybody and everybody. It's our birthright. It's part of our job description to awaken and to be of service.
Yeah. It's the inheritance that we're here to receive from the Heavenly Father and Mother that wants to pour forth this light. And we've come out of this long sleeping age, or whatever we call it, the dark ages, or whatever it was for that X amount of years. And so this new dawn, literally the light just coming in. We're entering that phase of humanity. And so, yeah, you, if you subscribe to reincarnations, we waited lifetimes to be here. And there are many beautiful people that are so gifted, Stephan, because I train people to get them to open their gifts up that they have, like the psychic abilities and the love and the knowledge they deeply already have. That's not in this life, to start to just pour forward. And it's so beautiful to watch, because beforehand, we live in a society where we're told this is success, this is failure, and it's none of that. It's just, it wants to just break free and break through. And it's very difficult for people on that journey who don't have a support group or don't have like-minded people to encourage that in a very thoughtful way, because the soul wants to experience this. And so it's nice to see you having these miracles, having these experiences. And I can just imagine, like, let's just say the whole of humanity became like this, where would we be? It's exciting. Like, we're in an exciting time on this precipice.
Yes. And wherever we're at, there's an epiphany, an awakening, a transformation just around the corner for us if we want it, right? So when we first met, it was about 10 years ago, and it was at a secret society intensive run by Neil Strauss, and famous for being a pickup artist, for being author of The Game. And at the time I was there to learn pickup, and I don't know if that was your intention too, but there was a much deeper learning that happened as being part of that community, of that mastermind. And that was a very powerful experience for me, going through that mastermind, that's secret society for those years. It opened a number of doors, and one thing that I recognized in the moment that I was ready to receive my soulmate in this lifetime is I prayed for her to show up just a couple months after the event in India where I was touched on the head by the monk, and it was the blessing that awakened me. And I knew within 5 minutes of meeting her that she was the one, and I broke all the rules from pickup, from what I've learned from Neil and others. I told her 18 hours after we met that I loved her. I proposed to her 9 days after we met in a hot air balloon. And she told me no. She told me not yet, while we were in this hot air balloon suspended above the Las Vegas desert. And wow, what a painful, awkward 20-minute descent back down to earth with us sobbing, and the pilot dumbstruck, like he'd never had a failure of a proposal in his basket, in his hot air balloon, ever. So I ruined his streak, and it brought us closer together than ever. I don't regret it for a moment. And when I went to the next intensive and I sheepishly shared what happened over those few weeks, meeting the woman that I proposed to 9 days later, and I was kind of a laughing stock. I totally violated all the rules of pickup, the negging and all that sort of stuff. And I just knew. I knew that the rules of engagement, the rules of the game, and the 3D plane and this physical reality don't apply when you're dealing with the ethereal, the 5D reality, that there's a higher level to it. And not to say that you shouldn't still be grounded in the 3D. Of course you should be. Of course you still have to pay the bills. You have to win over people in some fashion so that you can help them to transform or uh, find their purpose or their whatever. But there's a higher level, just like your healing, right? You didn't have to go get physical surgery from surgeons. You could get metaphysical surgery, and that's just so beautiful and profound and available to all of us.
Yeah. I remember we actually shared a room when you shared the story about the balloon. We actually, that intensive, and I was amazed. Yeah, and you guys are. It was like, what, really? So yeah, and you're so right. The rules are very different in the other space. There is this, the soul interaction and the soul relationships that are there, and that's why I find it funny now with these 3D rules about certain things, whether it's business, whether it's, relationships. It's like, yeah, you can play it there, and there's nothing wrong with playing it there. It's just it's an experience. It's just a human experience. But to go into that place where it's a lot more deeper, it saves you time.
Yeah,
A lot of time. So
yep.
yeah, thanks for
The
sharing that and
negotiation
reminding me.
techniques, the persuasion techniques, NLP, neuro linguistic programming, all that is valid, but there's something that trumps that, and that's getting divine guidance and operating at a 5D level. And
Well,
beautiful unfolding of that story is I proposed to not my now wife, Orion, 9 months after the 9 days of the hot air balloon experience, and she said yes, and we have a beautiful boy, and we have the most amazing connection and life together. And she is my person. She is the one. And I happened to know it 5 minutes after meeting her because I did a Diksha, the oneness blessing on her that I had learned in India. She requested it. It was at a Tony Robbins event where most people got a blessing, but she didn't. Not everybody got touched because it's not
people.
a lot of people, and it's dark and whatever. So when I prayed for her and connected in that way to her, I knew she was the one. So that was my kind of I don't know, cheat sheet or a little hint from the universe, like this is it. She's the one. So I knew immediately that I didn't need to mess around. I could just go order the ring and I could all that stuff that because we don't have to play games.
Yeah, but my story is a bit different from you. So I'm just going to help other men and women out there. I definitely was a ladies' man, and a lot of women in my life, and I did this thing called Vision Quest, where it's like 4 days, no food, no water. You're on a mountain, and you're kind of just praying. And I decided just to clean all my relationships up. Like I was just there, I didn't know what else to do, so I just cleaned. And then, wow. I didn't know how much I was carrying. Even if the one was right in front of me before that, I would never have known because I just had too much stuff that was there. So as soon as I cleaned that all out, it was like really with lots of love and lots of blessing, really gratitude for the whole experience. There's just nothing wrong with what I did, but it was just in my subconscious. That was just sitting there, all this information. So as soon as I cleaned that out, that opened up the path for the one to be there for me. So yeah, so sometimes if you can't do it like you, Steph, you just know, then maybe just clean something and it will be just like that too. From the two extremes.
Yeah.
But it's beautiful that you can just meet someone because I have a few friends, they've had that experience and they just knew. But it was impossible for me to have that experience without saying goodbye to a lot of it, like deeply on a very soul level. To allow that to be able to see it in front of me.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And circling back on something you said earlier about humility, I think it does require humility and surrender to say, you know what, my soulmate is out there, and uh, the timing is divine. It's meant to happen when it's meant to happen, and I would really, really humbly request that it happen sooner rather than later. And that can happen for you. I prayed for her to show up
Mm-hmm.
that same day,
Mm-hmm.
and I used the words
Mm-hmm.
right away. And
Right.
12 hours later, we were introduced by a mutual friend. Yeah.
Amazing.
It wasn't
Amazing.
the pickup techniques. It wasn't the
No.
getting out there and meeting women at coffee shops and bars and whatever. It was just a surrendering with humility and positive expectancy, and boom.
Yeah. There was no forcing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Well, this is a good place to wrap up our conversation. Thank you so much, Lazo, for sharing from your heart and from your soul what's been happening for you. And you're a light in the world, making a difference for many people, and I appreciate that. And many people, I'm sure, also appreciate that. Now, you also have some courses and trainings and group programs and things like that. So if you want to share how our listeners can connect with you, learn from you, maybe study from you or with you, how do they do that?
Sure. I run a excuse me. I run a 7-week course, 7 keys to awaken the heart. And it's really how to bring in certain energies into your system, whether it's divine will, whether it's forgiveness or compassion, certain energies you can start cultivating into your system as a practice so that you're ready to, face whatever challenges that we're going to have. So as we cultivate these energies, they're accessible. So we can be super compassionate when we need to be. Like it's just there. It's a type of training. So it involves a lot of breath work, shamanism. There's a big journey. Best way to contact me is just Lazo Freeman at Gmail. It's really just to select people. So if you feel the calling, I'm more than happy to be your guide. As I said, I'm not a teacher. I share, but just happy to guide people through that journey. I've seen beautiful results with many of my students, and we're here to just help one another. So yes, just email me, Lazo Freeman, and I'll send you more information. And big thank you to Stephan. It's always such a pleasure to be in your podcast and to just speak to you and hang out and listen to your wisdom, my friend. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. And listener, thank you for being a loyal listener to this podcast and joining me on this journey of life that we're all on together. And we'll catch you on the next episode. I'm your host, Stephan Spencer, signing off.